The next session we have coming up is with integrators. So I'm joined by two subject matter experts in the life sciences industry who've worked with a variety of different pharmaco, life sciences, med devices type companies, thinking about deploying different solutions. And we're going to talk about stories of digital app adoption in life sciences. So I'm going to hand it over to our panelists today to introduce themselves. And as a quick intro to me, I am part of Tulip's customer success team, and I work with customers to deploy or implement initial Tulip adoptions. So here's a slide for my introduction, which I glossed over. As we go through today, we've got after the introductions, we have a series of questions that we want to ask our panelists, but this is also open to anyone else on the webinar today. If you have any questions, please feel free to enter them in the Q&A box, and we will try to field them as we go through. So with that, I'm going to introduce our first guest, which is John Quirk, and let him take it from here.
That's great, Jessica. Thank you so much. Again, my name is John Quirk, representing Seabrook Technology Group. We're very happy to be supporting Tulip today in the Agile Manufacturing series, and in particular, the digital app adoption in life science session. So, my title at Seabrook is that of Director of Connected Manufacturing. I'm based on the US West Coast, actually in Portland, Oregon. But I started out my career in Ireland, spent pretty much all of my career in life sciences, initially in the technical area, app developer. I'm sorry, wasn't apps back then, but configurations for specific customers, configure to order type of situations, project management, and later moving on to actual product management. And that's the reason I came to the US about 12 plus years ago. So worked as a technologist and as a product manager when I came to the US first, and then later, and in recent times, transitioned into general management, where I have both business development and PMO, project implementation responsibilities. But in Seabrook, my responsibilities are thought leadership around connected manufacturing, and Seabrook's strategy and pivot to some extent towards cloud computing and software as a service, and in particular manufacturing apps, what that means as an opportunity for us and for our customers. I also have, like I said earlier, some responsibility for project implementation, the PMO function within Seabrook. So very happy to be here today, and just to talk a little bit, maybe Jess, if we move on to talk a little bit about Seabrook. We've been in the business, I guess I should say it that way, more than 30 years. Seabrook started in Ireland back those years, and we currently have offices in the US, Ireland, the US, India, and the Philippines. We have a strong, I would say, lineage back in MES to Camstar. More than 15 years of implementation of MES using that platform. We also are part of the AWS Partner Network, and in fact, we offer cloud and hosting services based on AWS. And of course, the strong partnership and relationship that we have with Tulip, which is the reason we're here today. But I would say the main added value that is our people. And what you're seeing here is some information and certifications around our people, because we believe our people are what add the value for our clients. So essentially, we're a platform or independent or agnostic engineering company, consulting company. Manufacturing IT projects are what we do. Everything from conceptual design through configuration and testing, deployment, and indeed even go live and post go live support. Our customers can access our support 24/7. We have a network of people that actually can work on support issues 24/7. So we and of course not least of all, when we talk about projects, we talk about project management capabilities and validation in particular. that's the industry that we're in. It's a regulated industry, so we don't just try to follow, but we try to lead in terms of thought leadership around technology and manufacturing, around the fact that it's a regulated industry. Seabrook has a culture and a very well-defined culture. It's something that we call EXCITE, and it's an acronym. It stands for excellence in all that we do, customer commitment beyond all, integrity in all of our interactions and relationships, teamwork, both internal and external, and evolution, which means we look to make sure that our solutions and our thought processes are as much as possible are future-proofed, and the investment is something that the client can continue to build on. So we're very proud of our culture and try to share it and live it and drive it as much as we possibly can. And I would say at Seabrook, our winning aspiration is to lead the medical device and diagnostics industry in what we call the connected manufacturing revolution. We want to be the manufacturing software as a service leader in this industry. Software as a service has been around a while, but on the shop floor in manufacturing in this sector, that's our leadership position. And we're calling this connected manufacturer for MedTech 4.0. That's something you may hear me talk about a little bit today. But I think just with that, I'll stop and hand it back. I know James is eager to get in.
Awesome. Thanks for that intro, John. So that is John from Seabrook, and our other guest joining us today is James Iron from Sequence. I will let him make his introduction and introduce Sequence from here.
Thanks, Jessica. I appreciate it. So, hey, everybody. We are thrilled to be here with our partners, Tulip. Really excited to talk about, the digital transformation of our industry in life sciences. I have been with Sequence for 15 years of the 18 years of the company. We are located in Morrisville, North Carolina, right in Research Triangle Park, and really have an exciting thing going on here with Tulip that we're so excited to talk about with digital transformation and all of the things we can do to help really lower costs of drugs. I manage the business development, partnerships, and strategy for us. Primarily partnerships is why I'm here today. And what our real passion for is gaining efficiencies. I cannot stand to waste time, and I'm looking forward to showing you guys Tulip and what we can do with it and how we can really transform our life sciences industry. So that's enough about me. We can talk about Sequence next. I don't know if you guys can see the slide. There we go. So yeah, Sequence, we're a consulting firm. We're focused on comprehensive quality and compliance solutions for regulated industries. So we work in manufacturing, quality control labs, and computerized systems. We started with a real focus on compliance back in 2003 around computer system validation. Really built that into multiple service offerings to support quality programs and compliance, laboratories, engineering, do a lot of process automation as well, software and data compliance, so your data integrity, validation needs, and even some monitoring. We have an office, like I said, in RTP. We also have an office in Framingham, Massachusetts. We do services work globally, which is the great thing about systems like Tulip is that, even in the land of coronavirus, you can still implement and integrate these systems remotely, and it's really exciting. So we are looking forward to chatting with you guys and seeing, what questions you have around Tulip, and ready to get it started.
Awesome. Thanks, James. So I think from here we are going to just move into our more open panel discussions. And for some context, Tulip, we talked about the incremental adoption of Tulip as a software solution. We talked about as a platform, not as a point solution. And it's often part of broader efforts to digitize various customers' operations, whether it's manufacturing or in a lab or somewhere else. So we wanted to start with a general question of, can you give us an example of how you've worked with a client on a digital transformation type project? And maybe ping it over to John to start with.
Sure. Thank you, Jess. That's a good question to start, I think. And maybe I do have a particular customer engagement in mind. And just to set the scene a little bit for that, you know, at Seabrook, we talk about a maturity model. We use it as I would say, a tool in order to help facilitate that conversation with our customers. Basically, it's, you know, what we call the digital manufacturing journey. Of course, Tulip fits into this very nicely, but our clients are somewhere on a spectrum of being totally paper-based in one end of the scale to on the other end of the scale being, you know, with fully adaptive, highly automated responses to events on the plant shop floor. But, you know, clients, we try to identify with them where they are on their digital manufacturing journey and then try to help them over a 3 or perhaps a 5-year horizon understand where they might want to get to. Well, Tulip as a platform, with its entry level, with the you know, the way to iterate, the agile nature of how you deploy and can you know, easily iterate, it's an ideal solution for starting at whatever point on that digital manufacturing journey the client might be at, and then being able to basically move at the speed that your business needs to move at, that the technology is not the barrier. In fact, it's the enabler for that growth. It's speeding the time to value and you know, driving really the business rather than trying to react to the business opportunities. So a maturity model to have the conversation, that was kind of the main point I wanted to make. The one customer that I wanted to talk to a little bit was because I think it illustrates, you know, you start and then you grow the vision. The particular customer is a medical device manufacturer, but they had contract manufacturing in the last 3 or 4 years. And at the end of last year and early this year, they made the decision to bring that in-house. Basically because fortunately they were, you know, being successful in the market. Scale was an issue, but getting control of that in-house and developing their people and growing the ability to be flexible to the market and have scale, basically, you know, suggested that I should bring manufacturing in-house. The question then was how to control the shop floor manufacturing, and very quickly they realized that, you know, Tulip as a technology, the fact that you can start quickly, get value quickly, and then as they were bringing in various components of their manufacturing, able to add to it, continue to be successful with one iteration and then add further apps and so on. It allowed them to get started, get value, and then continue to iterate. So they were very happy with that approach, and it suggested that, you know, technology, the Tulip technology was absolutely the right one for them. We played a part in it by being, to some extent, they were the manufacturing experts, of course. It's their product, their process, but we were able to help them with the infrastructure around the project methodology, the project management, even the validation strategy. But Tulip lends itself very well to that approach, to where you start small and build at the speed at which you want to go. So I think, you know, that's kind of what I was thinking just when you were asking that question. So I'll pause there for a moment.
Okay, no, that's perfect. You've already touched on a couple of the concepts that I think we will dig into a little bit more later, but of Tulip being able, you're able to implement it incrementally as opposed to more traditional MES solution where you have more of a switch on, switch off type of situation. And James, we didn't get to you.
Absolutely. You know, John really described, you know, our same experience, right? Taking that agile type approach. You know, we work with our clients in incremental states to, you know, go through sprints, make sure the app, you know, really represents exactly the process that the subject matter expert would want, you know, to see. And, you know, everything he described was very, very close to exactly our approach as well. You know, a lot of times it's just getting people to understand, you know, the change and understand what this different technology means and this type of, you know, disruption of a software, if you call it that is not normal to the robust, massive systems for something like an MES, where you're, you know, having a switch on, like you said, for an electronic batch record or even weigh and dispense and materials management all at once, which can be a you know, a 6 month to a year to multi-year and the $1 million effort, where you can really decide what is your pain point. Where do you want to start first? And with Tulip, that's where you can build that app for the EBR, and then eventually add the weigh and dispense, you know, eventually add the materials management in, and have all that data linked together in a compliant manner. So, you know, that's what you've got to be just so excited about, is that agile approach to implementation of the software is something it's new. And once people really start to understand it, they get excited too. So I think John really covered it well.
Awesome. Thanks, James. And
Yep.
to make this a little more tangible for the listeners, I'm going to give 2 examples, and I want to know if either of these were applicable to the situations you're in. As far as implementing Tulip incrementally, to give folks a sense for what that means, an example might be you have a site with multiple lines, and you could go just line clearance, like a Tulip app just for line clearance, and you go across all the lines and you do that first. Or another approach might be, for one line, you do weigh and dispense and line clearance and packaging and whatever else, and digitize a line first, and then scale across the different lines. I know I've seen both, and I was just curious if you have, or for the examples that you were speaking to, if it was one or the other, or something else.
Yeah, Jess, I don't think it's one or the other. I think really it's a matter of, the position that James or I might have would be we perhaps understand the platform a little bit, and, the client understands his pain points. He may, have a particular issue with a quality issue. It can be cycle time, it can be rework. Our role typically is to knowing the platform and knowing the capabilities and knowing the app bundles even that are out there, trying to then take that knowledge and sit with the client and understand where the pain points are. The beautiful thing is that we do always advocate, let's start small and get value, get the technology into the client's hands and start showing value. It becomes a much easier conversation for the client once that first deployment has happened. We really do take away some pain and we solidify the technology. People understand and feel less threatened about it, and we go from there. Mm-hmm. We as a consulting firm, I guess, or as an engineering company in that situation, what we would perhaps do is help them heavily on that first deployment, where we set up the infrastructure. We may even help them with that conversation around the app itself or the apps that are part of that first deployment. But the important thing is we're putting it in the client's hands also. It's not like the traditional platform where, they pay a large sum of money and wait 6-12 months and then they get their implementation. We help them from the day we start to understand the platform, showing them, mentoring, and maybe, like I said, being there for the go live of the first iteration. But we would then suggest that the second iteration, we're shoulder to shoulder, and by the third iteration, we're standing back, and the client is already thinking about what more they can do with apps, where they can add another app, maybe add an interface to either a shop floor device or add an interface to an ERP that wasn't there before. But they're finding those pain points and incrementally bringing on apps. The platform, even in a regulated environment, the platform is ideal for that because it's an app it's an entity in itself. You design it, you test it, you deploy it, you go to the next one. So, you're not talking about, huge impacts in validation. You're talking about managing that in a real way so that perhaps you have a sprint every month and the client is driving that with the client resources, and somebody like a James or I or our organizations are there to consult and help and guide, but the client is able to drive themselves these projects. So I think that's very powerful. Hopefully that answers the question somewhat.
Yeah, definitely. I just want to point out, you touched on a couple key points. So we've mentioned incremental adoption a few times now. You also mentioned the point on, for people being able to identify where their pain points are and build apps for themselves, they can drive value quickly, but for the issues that they see need to be addressed. So instead of just some blanket approach to try to fix everything, they could start where it really hurts and where the value is and focus on that. That makes a ton of sense. The next question we wanted to go to is, since we're talking about implementing Tulip and teaching folks to come across or to use the apps, you both mentioned Agile and how we use the Agile methodology to do the incremental deployment. But for customers and a customer base in the life sciences that are fairly rooted in what we might call traditional solutions, large MES systems, SAP, ERP systems, do you have any comments to the industry about how to think about digital technical solutions as they try to digitize their operations?
Do you want me to take that, or James?
Or James, you want to start with this one?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I kind of covered on this, and I hate to repeat it, but the MES solution takes entirely too long in our industry. But that's the same with a lot of software, and it has just to do with on-prem deployments and older technology, and it's just we can't be at this 6 months to a year deployment without even being able to use the software. I love what John touched on again on his last talk. He talked about how, hey, we can actually build the app with you and give you access to it and get that feedback, so it really represents that process correctly, right? So your ROI is so much faster and higher because you're going to be 10 times more efficient, really 90 times probably, compared to where we've been in the past when deploying large, robust MES systems for manufacturing drug product. When you can develop, if the pain point is EBR and you start with that, you can get a DBR stood up and running with several months, and then you're going to go into the weigh and dispense, right? And you can do it in a way that doesn't disrupt your current processes, and that's also very important. Especially around traditional solutions. A lot of people might have just implemented one that's very expensive and they want to keep using it, and that's one of the powers of Tulip, is that it can also augment the existing systems. So if you do have an EBR but you don't have, say, something to manage the weigh and dispense or other MES functionality, that's what you can build an app for in Tulip and begin to integrate that with your existing MES, because that is totally a possibility. The Tulip connectors really give you a framework to pull and push data from all of the various systems needed from your ERP type systems to a historian to really cover the bases of connectivity that you needed, but in a much more easy to use and easy to understand manner. One of my favorite things to explain to people when we talk about building Tulip apps, John explained the compliance, very perfectly as well, is that if you have a resource, create an app, it used to be a nightmare for if you had the word custom in our business is not good. And because it required custom coding, the tech just hasn't been there. So if John created an app and he left and I needed to understand it, it might just be gone. Well, with Tulip, you can go into the back end of it. You can look in it. Anyone that's done basic training on it can walk through and really understand how that works. And that is another really powerful point to make.
Thanks, James. And yeah, hopefully all of our listeners have joined enough of the sessions now to know Tulip is a no-code platform. So hence James's comment on comparable to other systems that might have tons of code in them.
Yep.
The next question I want to get into is, we've mentioned the word validation a couple times and compliance, and just given the industry that we are talking about, I know that is top of mind pretty frequently for everyone. So knowing that validation is so important, can you speak to how validation plays into implementing Tulip, what that might look like, and how potential users can think about Tulip relative to FDA and regulatory requirements?
Sure. So, Tulip is a validated platform, and this is new. It's even new for people to hear in pharma and life sciences, because heck, we were just talking about not being scared of the cloud 2 or 3 years ago, and now we're going full cloud. Platforms that can be deployed that are fully validated. That's a big deal. That's a big cost efficiency. That you're putting the onus of owning that validation of that on the vendor, and it's important because that they do a great job at it. And when you have a validated platform, all you have to do is go through and make sure it meets your own quality management systems requirements, whatever those may be, your typical ones, and write your plan for it. And then you've got a validated platform, and you're really validating the apps. That's kind of like your PQ. If we're going to go, use that validation terminology, you can almost do your your IQ, OQ, PQ of that app. And then once that's deployed, the versioning that is built inherently into the software makes it very simple to assign roles, responsibilities, make sure the right apps are on the floor at the right time, you know, who's assigned what. And then you build a change control process around them. So it's really as simple as adopting the platform, you know, validating your apps, and then moving into, you know, having a change control process to govern the changes to the apps as they're needed. If you want to make a change to a field or a name, that's a pretty simple change control procedure to write. So this is one of those things where it's different. Don't be scared. Don't be scared. It meets all the Part 11 requirements needed, EU Annex 11, and you know, it's actually a more simple validation approach than most folks are used to when you're deploying on-premises large, you know, systems that might have a 900-page operational qualification that we all love to do, right? Where, you know, you've got a validated platform with just validated apps and change control management around them.
Yeah, I think, sorry, Jesse, if I might just add to that. I think that's great, James, the way you walk through the process there. And, you know, it is new, and new sometimes is, oh, you know, I don't want to be the first and so on. But absolutely, it's fit for purpose. Absolutely, it's, you know, the compliance is all there. But that point about, you know, the platform is validated, and you can concentrate on the apps, and they're entities that are, you know, it's not a 600-page IQ and OQ document that you need. There's actually tools within the apps themselves, or within the platform itself, that, you know, you can actually look at the IQ, like the trail when you created the app and deployed it. You can perhaps in the future, even today, but it's a matter of whether our customers want to go there to where it's entirely electronic. Why print it? Why sign it if the platform has the capability to show you the IQ and the OQ, and you can review it and sign it electronically? You know, that's there, and that's something that we're moving towards rapidly. In our last implementation, we actually helped the client write an app for version control of the apps, so you can see the inventory of apps and what version they're at, and then request a change and promote from version A to B, or 1.1 to 1.2, or whatever it might be. So you're using the technology to support the traditional change control methodology that James referred to. So very flexible, very fit for purpose is kind of what I would want to say to what James has just said.
Yep, well said. I mean, the Tulip approach kind of meets where the FDA is changing their approach, right? So we're going more from computer system validation now to computer software assurance. And then that's really where the Tulip really lines up very well with that. Yep.
Thanks. And you both touched on the change management that can be controlled within Tulip itself. So if folks who are participating aren't aware, Tulip as a platform inherently comes with its own change management controlling system. So Tulip apps can be versioned, and as John mentioned, I think it's also a nice tie back to using Tulip for what you need. If a customer or client wanted a different app to specifically control versions or to see certain things, they could actually build it themselves, which is a fairly unique situation to Tulip. So to James's point on, I know Tulip is customizable, and customizable can be a bad word, but do you think of it as configurable? It's able to use whatever fit the need. So our next question is going to be, and you've touched on this a little bit as well. I think James was talking about this on, if you have an MES, you can still use, or if you have batch records or MESs, depending on what you do or don't have, Tulip still might fit into different gaps. So can you speak to how Tulip fits into an overall ecosystem of technologies? I know that Tulip, we sometimes call it the tech stack, or like the factory tech stack, and how Tulip can work relative to some of the existing systems.
Yeah, if you like, I can respond to that, at least initially. Yeah, I think, as James said, the augmenting existing technology is an ideal scenario for customers, I believe, because with the Tulip technology, the time to value is short. So if you have your MES or your PLM, whatever, on the shop floor today, Tulip can augment those in a very efficient way. And one of the things we're doing at Seabrook is making sure the back-end integration of the platform is dealt with. So we've done it, we've tested it, and that allows us and the customer then to talk about, well, what is the pain point that you're trying to get to with the Tulip app? What problem are you trying to solve? And we can concentrate on that, not the back-end integration, which is very straightforward with the Tulip out-of-the-box connectors that are already available. So we'll take care of that. And then, some of the examples might be MESs that it's data collection for MES. Either the interface can be sometimes a little bit difficult to implement, whereas with Tulip, there's lots of options out of the box. And, like we say, it's a no-code or a low-code application. So being able to do data collections with various devices and then place that data into the MES in a particular table or in a particular way that supports an existing workflow or data collection. Being able to do that speedily, but in a way that you're adopting Tulip, not just for that one project, but you're adopting this technology. And, you would be, as a manufacturer, saying to yourself, this is a platform for the next 3 to 5, 10 years where I can solve this sort of problem. I think that's an absolutely, invaluable use case, and one we're very much talking to existing customers about. I mean, new customers are definitely interested, but the entire install base that we might have, are interested in this, how you can augment their existing systems with this technology. Really exciting.
And James, do you want to add anything?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think it really just depends on where, companies are. And if they're in a startup phase, Tulip might come in and fill in a whole lot of gaps. But if you're in, an existing facility phase, and you might be just figuring out where the pain points are, where it fits in with those new systems, it's going to be more of like an augmentation role. A lot of times we're, just looking at where is the paper right now that we can remove. That generally will, increase efficiencies by 70-80%, just digitizing SOPs with videos and pictures. Say you might have a piece of equipment that is really tough to break down and clean and tends to be done inefficiently and incorrectly. And that's where, that might be your pain point to start with Tulip. So, where it sits with systems is really dependent on where you are as a company, whether you're in the startup phase, greenfield phase, brownfield, you're just identifying pain points. So that is one of the really cool things about it, is that you can apply it to all those different areas and in different areas of manufacturing, whether you've broken ground to, manufacturing drug product.
Yeah, absolutely.
James, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just thinking as James was talking to that the way, we're pretty happy that we have a maturity model for this digital manufacturing journey, that Tulip very much supports that, whether, you're, like I said, you're paper-based and trying to get rid of the paper, like you alluded to, or at the other spectrum where you're trying to, get some understanding and meaning from whatever the system is. The first thing we talk about is that where are you and where do you want to go as a business? And we use this maturity model to kind of have that conversation. But it's great that the Tulip platform and technology can then be used in various ways in that journey, whether it be right at the taking the paper off the shop floor to start with, or a spreadsheet or whatever's on the shop floor to start with. You're just basically tracking work orders, all the way up to fairly sophisticated analytics, or even integrating with analytics. It's awesome to have, for us to have a business or have in the business the maturity model, and then the Tulip plugging in wherever we need it to plug in. That's super.
Yeah, that is awesome. Thanks. And you both have mentioned a lot of really good points. I want to take the conversation in multiple directions right now, because you've touched on a couple of things. But to summarize a little bit for folks, in case some of it's not clear, they're less familiar with Tulip, it can be a front end for other systems and integrate directly. That's a common question we get, is can Tulip integrate with XYZ? Tulip can integrate with many systems, and both James and John have mentioned examples of that. It can also replace existing systems, or I think as James was mentioning, if you were a startup or a younger company and you're building or creating your ecosystem from scratch, Tulip can also fit into that. We really think of it as this layer that sits between the humans in the organization and on the operational side, and whatever other systems, machines, devices you have on the back end. The question I wanted to ask next was, because John was mentioning this concept of business objectives and using Tulip to address specific goals, issues that you're having. This is going to be an open-ended question on when have you seen Tulip be most impactful for your clients, or when do you think it would be most impactful to them? And this is open.
Yeah, I can think of a scenario that might illustrate. I think the flexibility that the technology gives customers, unlike I would think just a short few years ago, or the traditional very large enterprise software. Actually, the customer that I mentioned earlier, I didn't mention the customer, but the scenario that I mentioned, that same customer, as they were spinning up their manufacturing in-house, getting very comfortable with the platform, understanding what apps can do, and once that happens, once the client starts to really understand the power of the technology, the power of being able to solve problems with an app or an app bundle, it really snowballs. And in this case, somebody that was on the shop floor that was kind of peripherally involved in the deployment of that manufacturing technology to the shop floor. He came up with a brilliant idea and was implemented within a couple of weeks, where they're hiring staff on the shop floor. And what they wanted to do, and did do very quickly, was create an app for a kind of an aptitude test for people that would work on a specific job on the shop floor. They mocked up, on a tablet, an interface, and walked potential employees through a particular set of challenges, and were able to understand the suitability of that job for that person very quickly. But that they could come up with the app, design it, build it, deploy it, and use it within very, very short time, I think speaks volumes to the technology and to where this can go in terms of solving problems and so on. So just wanted to share that. I thought that was very appropriate.
Yeah, that's awesome. And James, when I hand it over.
For me, I mean, when is it most impactful for my clients? That could be quite a few different things, but mostly it's around when they really start seeing the efficiencies gained. We've worked with one for packaging and of a med device, and seen already head of the whole facility just having eyes on it and saying, man, this is game changer for time for us. This is going to absolutely knock down all the doors that have been in our way to be able to track data that we never were able to track. All different types of time, downtime. Making sure that things were done exactly correctly, and sure with videos and with that compliance. That efficiency time is money, and that talks. And then what's really exciting is when they figure out how to do it themselves, and they're like, wait, oh, I can do this also with the software. It's exactly what John talked about. Somebody came up with a great idea, and they were able to integrate it fast. And I think once people are really comfortable with the platform and even creating some of their own apps, then that's absolutely when it's most impactful.
Absolutely. And when you're touching on that portion of getting efficiency, we talk a lot about ROI, and when we do these initial pilots or proof of values, that being important to a lot of customers, a lot of stakeholders, and Tulip helps you track that. But also you're seeing that like focusing on where you can get that ROI and make that impact is where people start seeing value immediately, and then you can spread there.
Yep.
Awesome. All right, thanks. So while we're on the topic of ROI and efficiency, I did want to touch on the point that, especially if we get more use case specific, electronic batch record, electronic digital history record solutions, there are multiple out there, but they can also often be extremely costly. And of course, that's a consideration in decision making for implementing any solution for pretty much any company. So I was just wondering if you could speak to a little bit how you think about the cost of Tulip relative to other solutions, because you do work with numerous customers and they have different financial situations.
Yeah,
Sure.
No, go ahead, John.
Okay, thanks, James. Yeah, I think it's a technology thing. It's a Tulip thing for sure, but it's also a technology thing. The fact, we've been talking for a bit about the fact that you iterate, you start, get value, and then you iterate. The traditional, and as we said, not so many years ago, a very short period of time ago, you were talking about, a monolithic software implementation, capital expenditure cycle of 6 months to 18 months to 2 years before you see value, versus what we're now talking about, which is extremely short time to value. So the return on investment, it's a different type of calculation, but you start with the pain point and trying to, drive towards solving that, and then, iterating beyond that. It might be different, but it's still the same, the cost versus the benefit, of course, but it's much more doable. Absolutely much more doable. And a lot of our clients love the idea that they do not have to wait for the next capital cycle. They can start with even an operational expense, do a deployment, get the infrastructure in, do a deployment, and show value, get people talking about it. And like James said, where some of the leadership in the organization can see some KPIs, can see some data coming from the shop floor where there was a problem area before. Now they're seeing, it's shining a light on some problem. That's tremendously powerful for the organization. And it allows them to kind of bank some benefit and move on to the next area and the next area. And they're in control of that. They're in control. Typically, the manufacturer is in control of the speed at which that goes and the cost at which that goes. But you're paying for what you use. If you stop using, you don't have to continue to pay. It's not this huge capital barrier that it used to be. So I think it's really transforming how we use this technology, in my view.
I don't think I can answer that question much better than John just did. But one of the really exciting things that John didn't mention was that as you deploy this software, you can put unlimited apps on each workstation. So you're really, you're not stuck with a singular functionality either. Maybe the place to start is in your lab, where there's some SOPs that are not being followed well. You need to digitize some things like breaking down an HPLC or a plate reader, or how to use it, or even running an assay. That might be your place to start. And then, your next pain point might be something as much as an EBR, where there is no software that I've ever worked with in over 20 years of working in pharma or biotech that offers that depth of capability. Being able to configure something as easy as digitized SOP to MES type functionality. So you really can pick the place to start that is most important. That's really the point I want to make, a critical pain point.
Thank you. And to recap what you both have mentioned on being able to use multiple apps within Tulip, or in case some of the people who are listening aren't quite sure what that means, Tulip is a platform on which you put apps, and the apps refer to what we call use cases. So if you have a batch record on a certain workstation and Tulip is running for it, and then as James was saying, say you need to digitize some SOP associated with that station, you can also do that within Tulip, and the SOP is what we would say is a different app than probably the batch record, and you just navigate between the apps, open one, close one, that sort of thing.
Or you build that SOP and those instructions right into that EBR if you need to, and that's just another one of the cool tricks you can do that's really enhances efficiency for sure.
Definitely. Okay.
I think, Jesse, the other to build on that, the other aspect of it is to, because they're apps and it's solving a particular problem, and it's a bundle of apps perhaps that provides the overall solution. But these apps are reusable across the organization, across they're an entity within a library that has a life cycle of its own, but that solves a particular problem, and it can be deployed multiple times on multiple stations and so on. What we really get excited about at Seabrook is the idea that, if Tulip is the platform, what Seabrook want to do is capitalize on our 30 years of experience in the medical device industry and enable customers with our intellectual property in app and app bundles that do things that we think are important for the industry. So we deployed. So you have the Seabrook, bundle of apps that you can start your implementation with on the platform. That concept of, you out of the box, you get a huge amount of functionality, but the client themselves can create more libraries that are reused by the client, by sister companies, by whomever, or like in our case, I'm suggesting as a supplier, we for sure want to embody some of our intellectual property, and we think that would be valued by some of our customers. You know, depending on where you are on that maturity model, it gets you started quicker, and your time to value is reduced. And again, you pay for what you use, so you know it's a good proposition, I believe.
I love how you said passing along your intellectual property, right? And that's the same exact influence we want to have with all of our customers. You know, our manufacturing team and engineering team, automation, they're all heavily involved with Tulip. You know, they understand the customer's pain points. They understand how to deliver something that would not shock somebody on the floor. It's going to be usable, you know, out of the box. And, you know, it can't be understated to stress that experience, and that's what we're going to put into building these apps. I love that approach.
Yeah, you touched on it was something that's big at Tulip, which is reusable content, and the idea of templates, creating app libraries, either within a customer, within partners such as yourselves, or even within Tulip.
Yeah.
I do want to squeeze in one last question to end with. I know we're about at time, or possibly just a minute over, but just as maybe a quick 30-second one for both of you, given you are integrators and have chosen to work with Tulip and now have seen Tulip bit and worked with clients on it, do you have a message to other system integrators out there? Anything that you want to share with them? James, do you want to go first on that one?
Sure. You know, for us as an integrator, what I loved about Tulip when we started this partnership this year was really that it can enhance all of our service offerings in not just one area. A lot of times we work with software that's worked, you know, only analytics, or it's only dot control. This can be applied into the labs, manufacturing, you know, and IT related services. So it really gives you an edge in services delivery, you know, in regards to Pharma 4.0 type systems. You know, even internally, we use it for training. We have people in the field deliver training that can see the results through real-time apps and Tulip. You know, so I mean, my real message, you know, overall, I'd say is be ready. You know, be ready for a change, because I think that the systems that are so expensive and, you know, really not intuitive, very key part of Tulip, that how intuitive you can make the apps. Right? We have iPhoned ourselves to death. And now people are really wanting things even more simple. And if your software isn't simple and intuitive, it will not be used, you know. So we've got to adopt these approaches to the digital systems. You've got to get out of your comfort zone, so that like we as service providers, you know, John and I and Tulip together can make life sciences and pharma, biotech, med device as compliant as possible, but as efficient as possible, because we need to be driving down the cost of medicine. You know, it's really time that this industry was disrupted, but in a good way, so that we can do that. And that should be all of our end goal, lowering the price of medicine for, you know, everyone.
Yeah, patients, everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, James.
That's great, James, and I think that's right on. I mean, the idea that, you know, the Tulip platform is you know, you can scale it. It's almost open-ended in terms of where you can deploy it, where you can solve pain points and bring value. For us, and I would say it's the same for anybody considering this, we've seen the benefit of the technology, and like James said, it's coming. Apps on the shop floor, no code, low code apps, fast cycle times. These things are coming. We've not just reacted, but we've taken it in-house, and we're building and have built our strategy for growth around this technology, around manufacturing apps. You know, like I said at the very beginning, we're calling it connected manufacturing for MedTech 4.0. That is manufacturing apps for us. And I would encourage any integrator that works in the industry or any industry, you know, to look at the technology, because it is a game changer for the supplier, but most importantly for the manufacturer, I believe.
Thanks, John. And I think with that, we are going to wrap up. I want to thank you both again for joining us today, partnering and sharing your thoughts and experiences with everyone. I believe I'm going to hand it over to Patrick, who is orchestrating all of this on behalf of Tulip. I also want to thank all of our listeners. Thank you for joining us. And
thank you, Jessica. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks everybody for joining. Thank you guys for joining. We have about one just closing session, but if you have any other questions about our partners today, do you guys want to reiterate exactly the name of your companies and just a 10-second thing about what you guys do, so that way they can also reach out and follow up as well?
Sure. Yep. James Irons with Sequence. You can find us at sequenceqcs.com. If you need to email me directly, feel free, jirons@sequenceqcs.com. Any questions you might have, we do all kinds of compliance work, and as well as integration of systems and cross manufacturing labs and IT, and we do that throughout North America. So please feel free to reach out to me directly. Look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, James. And again, my name is John Quirk, and I'm with Seabrook Technology Group. And anywhere on social media, if you search for Seabrook Technology Group, you'll find us. Hopefully in this material as well, various ways to reach out. But yeah, reach out to me directly, or just hit up Seabrook Technology Group. We'll be absolutely thrilled to come and talk to you and try to understand how we can help. Yeah, we're like, what is it we do? We're, providing manufacturers in the medical device and diagnostic space with services to help them be more efficient to deploy their solutions and so on. So really enjoyed today. So thank you both very much, and look forward to next steps.
Yep. Thanks, Patrick. Thanks, Jessica.
Patrick, you are on mute, I believe.
Sorry about that. I was just saying thank you guys for joining, and we'll definitely reach out.